We gotta go back.
SK14.
I'm not a leftist, I'm a liberal, and we should just talk to each other. Okay, but what are we gonna talk about? Because you don't want to talk to people like me. You don't want to talk to anybody who's got anything to say. You want to talk to Jewy Jewstein, who says,
Got a lot of questions about Israel in the last week.
Yeah.
I apologize for my defense of our greatest ally in the Middle East.
Yeah.
I will not apologize.
We know you won't, bitch.
That my defense of
Epic,
Israel
epic.
shut up, you bitch. This guy's the biggest scum-sucking, anti-American loser, traitor.
Who likes Cardi B? 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 Who likes Cardi B?
He's mad. He's mad. Look at that shriveled up little face.
Who likes Cardi B? Who likes
Be
Cardi
the
B?
gamer moment.
SK14.
in the last week.
Yeah.
I apologize for my defense of our greatest ally in the Middle East.
Yeah.
I will not apologize.
We know you won't, bitch.
But I'm always just very puzzled at times when I get the amount
I'm
of
so
attention
puzzled.
that
I'm so puzzled all the time.
Middle East, the only place where all three monotheists,
Somebody's got to go Joker mode.
All right, we'll transition out real fast there. Welcome back to the Death by Tyranny podcast. I thought I had this thing set up right, and I clearly don't. Man, oh man, I tell you what. Does bad luck come in waves or what, man? Anyways, so somebody commented on one of the posts on Facebook, and it got me thinking, because I know what he said and why he said it. I even know that it comes from a good place. Now, I've said this before. A lot of people say this, actually. No matter if you agree or disagree with somebody, you should always try to take their point from the best possible place. Don't just assume that they're trying to be as malicious and evil as you may think it sounds. So, the conversation in the post we're talking about here was me posting saying that people should be buying Winchester 62 grain, green tip 5.56, and the boatloads. Now, there's multiple reasons why I think you should be doing this. For one, this is a ammunition that is contracted to the federal government, and I believe, no matter how many people who've served, not served, that will come out and say that anybody who believes that we should be allowed to own everything the government owns isn't even trying to be a part of this conversation. I disagree with that 100%. I think the Second Amendment is there so that it's very clear that not only do we have the right, but we have the duty to be as efficient in violence as the federal government does. And at any point that we think they are becoming tyrannical, we should be able to have a way to check and balance the federal system. Well, we've lost that ability. Not only have we lost that ability, but we slowly, year by year, no matter how technologically advanced we become or how progressive we may be, we only lose the right to own the things that the federal government has the right to own. I think it's pretty fair to say that most people agree that the federal government doesn't play by the rules when it comes to the stock market, when it comes to having laws enforced when they decide to obey or disobey them. And so my post was just signaling out to the people that this ammunition is probably soon going to be hard to come by for civilians. And I've heard people that actually make ammunition say that you shouldn't do that because you're going to cause people to go out and buy this ammunition. It's going to drive the price up even more. Well, here's the thing. That would be the case if we had a bottleneck in the system and it was still going to be trickling into the civilian market. That would be the case. You wouldn't want to make a panic so people ran out and bought all the ammunition and drove prices up. That is correct. But if Biden is telling Winchester, you can no longer sell any overrun, there is no bottleneck, you've been completely cut off. So the people that are going to jack up the price probably already know this and will be well aware of it before we are. And since we know about it, they've already started to increase their pricing. It's just going to come down to, did you know about it before there was no longer a chance to buy it? So this is why I made the post, because I want people to be able to go out and purchase that ammunition if they would like to own it. Especially me being, I can't really say that I'm a part of it, the cloning small arm community, but I would like to think so. And I would almost imagine that the people who want the parts and the guns that the federal government has access to would also like the ammunition that the federal government has access to. So I was just making sure that, especially on Facebook, because a lot of the people that are friends with me on Facebook don't follow me on Instagram or anywhere else. They're not a part of the conversations that I am. They're not in the groups that I am, that have owners of these ammunition companies, that have owners of these gear companies, that have contact with people on the inside, that have intel that we are not privy to. And sometimes we are not only not privy to that information, but we are being fed information to lead us away from what is actually happening. So that was the post. Go buy some Winchester green tip. That's the moral of the story there. And the comment on it was, and I won't name it because, like I said, I don't believe the comment was left to be malicious or to point out ignorance or anything like this. And a lot of people in the prepping community, gun community, 2A community, whatever you want to call it, have this mentality where they don't feel that you should show these things on social media because you're pretty much signaling to the federal government, if the time ever comes, what you have. So you don't really have an advantage artillery-wise. And I understand where that's coming from, and like I said, I think it's coming from a good place. But when you've been involved on the level that I've been involved online, as the gun community has grown, back when you could openly sell firearms, like in the comments, I know some people that might come to a shock to them. Now, of course, there still requires FFLs unless you're in the same state. We still followed laws. I'm sure there were people that broke it, and that's probably why it went away. I don't think it's right. I don't agree with it, but there was that time. And I guarantee you during that time, or at least shortly therefore after, the government started paying attention to people who had a lot of traffic in and out, who had a lot of FFL transfers, who shipped a lot of guns via UPS. And I'm one of those people. Not only that, but I've sold, and I'm this isn't a humble brag, I'm not being braggadocious at all. I think I've told this story before. The way that I've obtained the firearms that I've had the privilege to own isn't that I have a decent job, because the job that I have isn't even fucking currently paying me, and I could do a whole podcast on that alone. But it's because I started out the hard way. I bought the shitty guns. And thank God it was a time where you could just get on Facebook and say, hey, I don't like this firearm, it's not for me, and sell it and flip it, boom, be done with it and move on to the next thing. So I would save up, I would buy a shitty gun, decide I didn't like it, sell it, maybe make a little bit extra money, maybe not. There definitely was probably more times that I lost money than I earned it. But eventually I had enough shitty guns to where I could trade for one good gun. And then I saved up and I bought guns that complemented that one good gun. And then Obama came along and banned the import of those guns. And I was in the AK community at a fantastic time when there was a legitimate argument between AK guys and AR guys. Now, it's, in my opinion, it's not legitimate anymore because you've outpriced decent AKs to a lot of people. And a lot of people made a lot of money. And they did the same thing that's going to happen with green tip to the Chinese and Russian AKs. They price gouged because they knew that supply was not being bottlenecked like Arsenal AKs are right now. They're being extremely bottlenecked because they're probably the last of the good AKs we can import as far as like top shelf. And they distribute to a lot of countries' militaries. So there is a bottleneck where that slowly trickles into the United States. That's why you'll see from time to time the AKs that they offer United States citizens change. For a long time, you could not get a milled AK in the caliber 5.56. Right now, you can. They are very expensive, almost double what they used to be. But you couldn't get those. And that probably had a little bit to do with import laws, and probably more so had a lot to do with the contracts that Arsenal held with other countries and other military units. The Arsenal SLR 104 is probably the coolest, affordable 5.45 by 39 AK out there. I had the Russian version, the SGL. I also had the 104. Since this is on Facebook, if you'd like to see it, I do have a short clip of my wife shooting the Arsenal SLR 104. Beautiful woman, beautiful gun. That's all I need to say there. But we can no longer get those weapons in the United States. And it's probably because it's so highly known how awesome those weapons are. The 7.62 by 39 version of that gun, I believe, is the 107. We had access to that firearm for a decade. I owned it, I sold it, I regret it. They were coming in at the point where, yes, they were still highly priced for the time. Arsenal has always been on the higher end of things. But nobody thought that bottleneck was going to get capped off and closed. And because we are the United States and we have the Second Amendment, and the government can't just come out and pull some Canada shit, they are finding ways around that. I hate to break it to some of the just average gun guys, you know, your average boomer, but they don't need to ban AKs. The people that have the ones worth owning have them. They're probably not going to sell them. And if they sell them, you're probably out of that price range. So by other means, the government has went around the Second Amendment and outpriced and banned import of any AK worth owning. Now, we make a lot of the decent ARs here in the United States, so it's going to be a little bit harder. But it started with the ammunition with the AKs. And they were very successful very fast. So, to be honest, if I had to make the choice between letting the federal government know I have 200 Winchester 62 grain green tip .556 rounds, which is what I showed in the post, which may or may not be more or less than I have now. I have to choose between making that post and potentially signaling to the federal government that I own that ammunition, or signaling to the rest of my friends and family and loved ones, you need to go get this now, or you're going to lose the opportunity. Because I wish someone would have let everybody in the AK community know when those Arsenal AKs were going to slowly disappear. What was eventually going to come in so we didn't overpay for milled .556. I knew a guy, he had the milled .556. This just goes to show you how long I've been involved in this. About a decade ago, I don't know how he imported it, or if it was one of the, I believe they only imported like 50 to 100 of these around 95. And at that time, we had the assault weapon ban, so it came in all willy wonky, and he had it customized to actually look like the Romanian underfolder Warsa 10 AKs. But the heart of it, the receiver of it, was a milled .556 Bulgarian Arsenal AK receiver. And everyone knew that AK. It didn't have to have a mag in it, nothing. It was that notorious, and it was a beautiful gun. And people tried to remanufacture that same thing and failed time and time again. Other people went and tried to find the other 50 to 100 that were imported and paid a huge amount of money. There are milled Hungarian AKs. I believe it's the SA, 86, something like this. Again, came in during the assault weapon ban, came in a little wonky. You can reconfigure those to look pretty decent. And then you have the Hungarian milled AKs pre-ban, which are just, will blow your fucking mind how much these things cost, up in the $5,000-$6,000 range. I'm Hungarian. This is like one of my dream AKs. It's one of the reasons that I think I tricked myself into so passionately wanting the Russian 545x39, because I knew I would never be able to financially obtain the milled Hungarian version of the AK that I wanted. And I think it's worth making those posts. And I don't think it matters what you post on social media as far as what you do or don't own. When the time comes that they come for your guns, you're going to lose. I don't think a lot of people realize that. They think it's like going to be this, the movie Patriot standoff, where you have the federal government and the civilians of the United States, and the cannon goes off and we all rush in. No. They're going to come in one by one, gun by gun, and kill us all. That is how it's going to go down. And not until they are actively doing that. But while they do that, since it is a slow process, they are going to make it harder for us to own anything that would help us defend against that. Now, I live in the suburbs, okay? There is no physical way that I am going to be able to hide enough shit to fend off the federal government where I live at right now. If I was fortunate enough to own 30 acres somewhere around Ohio, yes, I would put something, a bunker, something, a shipping container in the ground, maybe build a flat range on top of it, keep it very secretive, stockpile ammunition. But as of right now, a couple thousand rounds for every gun that I own is plenty. You can't really shoot anywhere in Ohio and do proper training. So to go out and shoot 1,000 rounds at a time isn't really worth it, especially right now in the financial, economical crisis that we're in. So the only thing you can really do is work on, dry fire, other tactics, work on buying a lot of the gear and body armor and stuff that you wouldn't be able to afford because you're too busy going out and buying ammunition and ammunition and ammunition and training and not really accomplishing anything because you're shooting at paper, standing still, not even in a good stance, not even able to draw from a holster. When ammunition was hard to find, that a lot of people signaled that. They said, hey, now is the time to focus on other things. Start saving up for that body armor that you can actually wear, that is light enough, because light body armor is not cheap. And cheap body armor is not good. So you're probably, if you don't already have it, going to have to save up for that. Well, while you save up for that, start looking into plate carriers. Start looking into what brands are decent, what brands are all hype. And then start looking into your environment. How would that actually play out for you? Because as of right now, how it's going to play out for the majority of us, especially individuals like myself, is going to begin with a knock on the door, probably a couple flashbangs through my window, and then a bullet in my brain cavity, okay? That's how it's going to go. So it doesn't really fucking matter what I post on social media. And I'm not trying to be an asshole about it. I'm just trying to say I think I accomplish more by being on social media and talking about these things and showing these things and telling people to go get them while they can than not doing it. Because either way, before I had a podcast, before I actively put multiple memes a day signaling that my hatred for the Democrat Party, long before that, I was getting calls from ATF agents asking how weapons that I was the last transferee ended up in other states. Because there was that time in Facebook history where you could go amongst the at least in Ohio, and sell to a law-abiding citizen, resident to resident with no paperwork. So there are probably a good 25 to 50 firearms out there that I may or may not be the last transferee on that, and I know at least one or two of them have already been used in crimes. I did everything right. I did everything legal. And yet still, somehow, because laws don't mean shit, criminals were able to obtain those weapons, and guess what? They didn't find the criminals. They came looking for me, the guy who did it the right way. So I'm already on all the list. I've already been contacted. I'm already a person of interest when it comes to people who are likely to start or join a militia. I've been photographed with people, high-profile people, that were in the Capitol on January 6th. I've been reported and recorded at protest of some of the most canceled people on the right wing because they are so extreme that Fox News won't even say their name. That one post of 200 rounds isn't really going to do a whole lot to make or break me in the situation that I'm in. But it could potentially, and this is really my hope, because I know I have a lot of friends on Facebook that agree with the Second Amendment, but they don't know what it means. I know that I have a lot of friends that enjoy looking into and trying to participate in prepping lifestyle. Okay? But it never ceases to amaze me the naiveness that they have for the things that they may be saving up for, the things that they want, or the plans that they have, how fast their ability to get those things disappear. And not only that, but that the federal government that they say that they're prepping for did it on purpose and did it at a specific time for a specific reason. Now, I can't remember if I've posted it yet, but how funny is it that I come out and I make a podcast telling people to go out and buy this Winchester 5.56 green tip ammunition. Shortly after that, it comes out that the IRS buys $700,000 directly from Winchester the same ammunition Biden is talking about banning. I do believe the IRS has a sector amongst its agency that is some type of tactical unit that we probably don't get to see a whole lot of. That is probably very black, you know, and when I say black, I mean not visible to the civilians or normal population. Probably not even a lot of the other agencies. But what does a agency that specializes and only purpose there is to collect taxes from citizens have any business doing with $700,000 worth of ammunition described by our own president that will tear humans' limbs apart? You tell me that. You tell me why Biden is now coming out and telling Winchester they can't sell their overrun to civilians, and the IRS buys $700,000 of the same shit. Do you think that's a coincidence? Now, I that's where the conspiracy theories start to roll down the hill, and I think this one is going to be a massive boulder by the time it gets to the bottom of that hill, conspiracy-wise. But I can promise you it is not a good thing. Just like it is not a good thing that New York bans soft body armor, because nobody is dying by death by body armor, right? There is no cases in New York right now where people are going around soft armor and murdering people in the middle of the street with soft body armor. There's not even been a high-profile case where somebody's been wearing soft body armor that they've made the case in connection for the reason for the ban. The only thing banning soft body armor does is eliminate the price-efficient sector of body armor for normal civilians to make them easier to kill. And now the IRS, which pretty much has free reins across the nation, have ammunition that was designed to do a lot of damage with or without that body armor. Do you think that they just plan on, the IRS plans on using all that ammunition overseas? Are you that retarded? And let's say they bought it for practice, right? What are they practicing for? To go in and take the body armor that they just banned in New York? There has to be something. You don't buy that amount of ammunition unless you're training or stockpiling for an event at any level, whether it be the federal military or personal individual level. There are plans for that ammunition. And seeing that it's our tax dollars that bought that same ammunition that we're no longer going to be able to buy, I think we have a right to know why the IRS obtained that amount of ammunition and what they plan on doing with it. Because I guarantee you, whatever answer they give is going to be bullshit and is probably going to lead into another question. Well, we bought it so we can train with it. So our agents that may have to perform tactics out in the field when we're collecting taxes from normal citizens, if something were to happen, we need to be able to have that ammunition to train. Well, they just told you that they're planning to train to go out and demand that people pay their taxes, and if they don't, they're training people to kill them. In their term, with assault weapons and assault-style ammunition. Now, a lot of you may not know this, but a long, long time ago, a country got started because there were some assholes that thought they had more power than everybody else, demanded that the people beneath them pay taxes unfairly and unjustifiably, and eventually they started killing those people, And at some point, those people had to stand up and fight back. I don't know how many times I got to tell you people this. Wait, there is no, it's about to be a civil war. We are living in the age of a tyrannical government that is doing probably more than what it has ever done to be justified for civilian population to rise up and fight against the federal government. And we are just bending over backwards and taking it, so much so that we gave it a whole fucking month. Don't worry about what you fucking post on social media. It's not going to matter. If they want you dead, you're going to get smoked in the middle of the night. It doesn't matter how expensive your AR is. It doesn't matter how much ammunition you had. If you're concerned, you've already been targeted. They've already done their homework, and your death date is already probably signed. The only thing that you can hope for now is that death certificate that they've signed for you has a date that surpasses the next election cycle, and maybe, just maybe, God willing, we get a president that isn't a fucking retard that starts getting rid of some of these Democrats, but not only get rid of them, start imprisoning a lot of them, because if we don't start imprisoning them, it will come to a point where we have to kill them because they are so tyrannical. It is already to that point. They just have so much power that we cannot fight back or kill them. We can't even talk about it. Or else, that certificate that I was talking about, that the president would sign for one of those alphabet agencies to come in and smoke you in the middle of the night, that would get signed and you would be dead tomorrow. That is how little they give a fuck about you and what you post on the internet. So, with that said, I still highly suggest there are still multiple websites that have Winchester 62 grain green tip 5.56. For whatever reason, it seems like the smaller amounts, like the 20 round boxes, are cheaper per round than like the cans of 1,000 or 500, which is weird because usually it's the opposite. And the only thing I can think is that the companies that are doing that are trying to make sure that they put that ammunition in more people's hands rather than trying to price gouge people. Because from the website that I'm talking about is Gun Mag Warehouse, they seem like pretty decent people, and I could see them doing something like that, where they would make the smaller amounts cheaper so that they could put that ammunition in more households. Now, this is a whole nother podcast on itself too, but we'll dip our toes into it. For a long time, Palmetto State Armory caught a lot of flack. A lot of people thought they were shit because they were cheap. But the owner of that company went throughout the industry and bought the companies that were his competition and that were better just to lower the price. And the reason for that was to put more AR-15s in the hands of United States citizens than had ever been before. And a decade ago, the AR-15 platform was not as popular as it is today. It is so popular and is in the hands of so many civilians that I don't believe the federal government could ever get rid of all of them, not even a good percent of them. And Palmetto State Armory played a huge part in that. When you're talking about the cost of a weapon system and ammunition, there's a lot of people in the gun community that will mock people for being poor. A lot of people in the hype beast culture, which is all fine and dandy, and I enjoy entertaining that sometimes too. But at the end of the day, there's only so many rich guys that can afford Knight's armament. There's only so many rich guys that can afford the top tier shit. We have to make shit that is capable of fighting a war, capable of standing up against the same shit that they use in the military out to civilians at a price where normal and average civilians can actually own and train with that shit. Or it's kind of all for nothing. You can be the biggest Second Amendment supporter in the world, but if you only recognize that top tier, really expensive hype shit and you spend most of your time on the internet shitting on all the people who can't afford that, you're not helping. You're not helping at all. So keep all that in mind. I'm sure some more shit will come out involving the federal government and them trying to take more shit away. I hear there's some asshole down in Texas trying to convince them into red flag laws. We already have them here in Ohio. Why anybody thinks that shit is a good idea and that it isn't against the Constitution and against our rights, it blows me away. For those of you that don't know, I will sum red flags laws up very easily. The federal government does not have the right to come in your home and seize your firearms. But if your state enacts red flag laws, your ex-girlfriend can say, hey, yeah, he was drunk last night, and yeah, he's got guns, and I'm afraid. And that erases your rights away. And then those people will knock on your door, throw the flashbangs through your window, seize all your fucking firearms, and you'll probably go to jail. And there have been, I know they don't like to release this and spread it like they do when a cop kills a black person, but there have been situations where these red flag laws have been called on people, and because they've practiced their Second Amendment, they've shot back at these cops. I believe that's kind of sort of what happened in Kentucky there with some Black Lives Matter shit, right? But you same fucking stupid motherfuckers that refuse to vote for anybody else but a Democrat because for whatever reason you think if your skin's not white you have to vote Democrat, you're voting for the same laws that you were just bitching about killed some drug dealer in Kentucky. So save that shit for the birds. Anybody that stands for red flag laws does not support the Second Amendment. I don't give a fuck what you say. Stay prepared. Stay safe. I love you guys. God bless America first. Peace, y'all.